Hello everyone, I'm back and today we're building a wedding barn venue. And this is actually it's kind of like, it's a heavily inspired build by a wedding that I actually went to a little while ago now. And it's really interesting. I mean, you probably don't find this very interesting, but the wedding venue itself was called a barn, had barn in its name kind of vibe. And obviously it was a barn, but it's not that kind of like, well, for me anyway, what you kind of envisage when you're going to like a barn wedding, if you know what I mean. I kind of always kind of picture like a really traditional barn, so like a really wooden barn with that, like, you know, that shape where you've got like the tall bit in the middle and then you've got the two bits sticking out either side. Just your kind of classic barn shape. I don't know. Big barn door and just very rusticy, kind of like maybe near a farm. And obviously this is a barn, but it's just a very different kind of barn. So it was like stone and it was still rusticy, but also kind of like sophisticated. It's very hard to describe, and hopefully like you can kind of get the vibes, obviously, like once you see it like in all its glory at the end. But yeah, so it's a bit of a funny shape, and to be honest, when I first saw it, the kind of exterior of it wasn't that kind of like wow. Do you know what I mean? You didn't get that wow factor. It wasn't like super like interesting, to be honest, because it was in the middle of nowhere basically. It kind of just looked like a farm building from the distance, just like as in a still functioning one, just very, yeah, like the outside hadn't really been touched, although it has, but just basically they've just done like they've done it really well, because they've done it in a way that isn't kind of like destroying the original, how it looked originally, basically, you know, keeping the roof the same of this kind of like corrugated metal, like really, really old. You can tell it's been like that for a long time, and obviously the stone and everything, just like delicately like renovated it, and it just kind of works. But obviously with The Sims, you can't completely recreate it. Like I think the kind of wow factor was when you kind of came round to the front of the barn itself, and you had the big barn doors and big windows in the kind of center part sticking out, if you see what I mean. So what I've kind of like, where you can see the windows now and the barn door, obviously, that was kind of very dramatic, and it had a really like cool curved window which was part of the door. It was all one kind of pane, I suppose. And yeah, you just kind of can't create those shapes on The Sims, so I've just kind of done the best I can with it, and that's why you might see me chop and change things that maybe feel like really unnecessary. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you changing the roof that much? Does it really need changing that much? No, not really, but it made me feel better, you know? Like, it made me feel like it was closer to the original, even though it didn't need to be, right? Like, it is what it is. But anyway, so this venue, like I said, I went to, it was a long time ago now, but it was in the Cotswolds, so it kind of was, like I say, in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, like, I don't know, it's just like I've never been to a wedding like this before. It was like, obviously in a barn, so very rustic, but it was quite swish, you know, like it wasn't, yeah, like it was swish, that's the only way, like very fancy. It was very fancy, I have to say, it's a very fancy venue, even though, like I said, from the outside it's not like crazily in your face. You feel like you're at a fancy venue, do you know what I mean? Because I would say it's the inside, the interior of this barn is what is like the wow factor. And you'll see when we go inside, like it's got a few interesting layouts, I'm gonna say, and you'll see what I mean when we get inside. But I guess with an older building, you just kind of have to work with what you've got. But the actual like space where you get married is stunning, really, really stunning, and I can see why they would pick this venue, because it's just really nice, and it kind of has this, it's sort of able to feel not like really closed off, like very open and airy, but also like still intimate. Like I don't know how it just worked, you know, it just worked. And if anyone's interested, it's very niche, but it was called Cripps Barn. So if anyone is like interested in in the barn I'm talking about. It's called Quip's Barn. And yeah, so sorry that it's been a while, guys. I'll be honest. I'm fully aware that it has been a little while since I last posted a video, but I just kind of realised I'm just not in a position to have a like strict upload schedule. I'm just gonna have to upload when I can. Like, I really, really wish I could, but it's just life. It's just timings. I just don't have crazy amounts of time. For anyone who doesn't know, I have a very young child who doesn't really sleep, so I don't have crazy amounts of time, basically. So this is obviously not like, you know, the priority. So yeah, so I'm just gonna upload when I can. I have as well been enjoying making my like shorts of previous builds that I've made, which only a few, I don't know how many builds I've done it for now, how many videos I've done, but I've started having a kind of like walkthrough intro of the build rather than just using screenshots like I used to. And so I've kind of been going back through old builds which don't have the walkthroughs and making shorts of them, just so that you can kind of get a feel for the inside of the lot, rather than, you know, obviously if you don't want to download it or anything like that, you just kind of get a better feel for a build rather than just having screenshots. So I've enjoyed doing those, and obviously I can make those much, you know, they're much quicker, obviously, to make. So I'll definitely try and do those as kind of more regular and much more frequent. But yeah, so yeah, I'm sorry guys. I know it's not like, I'm not very good at YouTube stuff, am I, really? I'm not a good YouTuber, but we'll just go with it, you know, just go with it. And I think I fancied making this wedding venue this time, just because obviously we've got the new pack. I've downloaded the new pack, but I've not actually looked at it yet. But I'm excited to, because obviously it is based, the world is based on Mexico City, which I think is really, really cool. And yeah, super exciting. And I felt like, let's make a wedding venue for all your love-struck Sims. Obviously this isn't in the world or anything, the new world, because I started building this obviously before the new pack came out. But I just thought, you know, maybe there's some Sims out there who want to have a nice countryside getaway wedding. But yeah, the new pack, it looks really great. I really love that it's based somewhere different. I love when we have worlds that are just different cultures, different, you know, based in different parts of the world. I just think it's really cool. And I actually have, like, ages and ages ago, made a couple of Mexican inspired builds. I think there's a couple on here, but like I said, like ages ago. So before I used to do the voiceovers. So I'm thinking of maybe doing a kind of, maybe trying to make a maybe more renovated, you know, like renovate one, not renovate it, but like make a new version, I suppose. Just because now we have this world, I just feel like I should make those type of builds, because they will actually really, really, really fit in. I think I built them in Oasis Springs just because it's, I don't know, it's just kind of got those vibes. But yeah, I feel like now that we have this world, I've definitely got to kind of maybe do some newer versions of those, you know. I just think it'd be really nice to have those for the game. I also think for gameplay, because this world, just because of obviously the theme of the pack, I think it's kind of calling for lots for your Sims to be able to obviously like go on dates on, hang out on, just kind of like community lots that are kind of like fun. I don't know, like that. Yeah, you could do a lot of gameplay with. So it'd be nice to kind of, yeah, bring some, make some sort of like new versions, you know, be fun. But yeah, so you'll see this lot. I'm still on the outside, of course I am. But this, I have to say, this is probably one of the builds where the outside was like, I preferred the inside to the outside of this build, which is unusual. I tend to prefer doing the outside of builds just because I think it's fun to try and make something like, I mean, obviously depending on what you're building, but like as realistic or however the theme, the style or whatever you want to build, just making it look like that kind of like kind of realistic, kind of how it is, or, you know. So I tend to put a lot more focus on the outside. But like I said, this build is quite simple on the outside, really. Like there's nothing fancy. There's no like big grounds that are like overly landscaped. Like it was just kind of quite free because obviously we're out in Henford-on-Bagley. I just felt like it was the countryside. Obviously there is some landscaping, but it's very just kind of like, I imagine it's like wildflowers, just very like chill vibes, you know? So nothing like really like manicured, I want to say, perfected. But yeah, it's the inside that I did actually really enjoy doing. And you'll see why once we get inside. And this wedding actually that we went to here was obviously like really, really stunning wedding. But because obviously this barn was in the middle of nowhere, like really, really in the middle of nowhere. I kind of never been somewhere where just for such a long time, like it is just country roads. Like there was just... like there wasn't really any accommodation like super nearby, and the one thing that really caught us out was taxis. So because my husband was a groomsman at this wedding, we were lucky enough to be staying with like the other groomsman in a cottage, which was like obviously pretty close by. It wasn't like, you know, you still had to you couldn't walk, basically is what I'm saying. You had to like go in a vehicle, really. I mean, you could walk, but it would take a while. So we were just kind of going with the flow with everyone, because obviously there's like a lot of people staying in this cottage, and everyone was just kind of doing the same thing. And they kind of organized a group taxi for the end of the night, which we were like, great, like we can all get in that at the same time. And we didn't realize until kind of maybe like the day before the wedding or something, that this taxi had been booked for 1 a.m, which I feel like is quite late or early, I guess, however you say it. I like go to bed pretty early in general. And yeah, I literally cannot remember the last time I'd stayed up till 1 before that. So we were like, this is interesting. What do we do? Do we stay up? Like obviously we kind of felt like, oh, it'd be kind of fun to stay till the end, because that's when everyone's leaving. So let's stay to the end. And, you know, we don't do it very often. It's kind of fun. It's a wedding, yada, yada, yada. But when it got to like 11, we were like done. And to be honest, quite a lot of people were done, because I think the day was quite long. It was quite a long wedding. The kind of wedding breakfast, so the kind of bit where obviously you're having all the food and then there's the speeches and everything, that took over 4 hours. And so obviously during that time, that's when people were partying, basically. So of course, by the time it got to like 11, everyone was done. So a lot of people, to be honest, there was a few people that felt like just slept on. There was a couple, you'll see later, there's a couple of sofas in the barn, and a couple of people just fell asleep, because obviously in that moment we were like, let's just book we'll just book our own taxi and get a lift back on our own. But we called every single taxi company that the venue kind of like had on a list kind of thing that they used, and all the ones nearby that we could find, and all of them were fully booked. So we were literally stranded. Like I've never had that before, where we literally couldn't get back. So that was really interesting. But so we managed to stay out till 1. I got back, we were very tired, and yeah, so always remember to check the time if you're sharing a taxi with someone, and pre-book taxis, because they book up, especially when you're in the middle of nowhere and they don't want to come all the way out to get you, basically. So yes, that was kind of interesting. But yeah, like I said, there was kind of a room which it's kind of like it was small, but it was chill space, and it had a couple of sofas in there. So that's kind of where people, like, if they were really tired, just kind of like had a little nap. So it was kind of fun. So you'll see that the main like barn area is this big kind of, it's like a T shape, like a capital T shape. So obviously, like I said, this is an old building, so they're just working with what they've got, and obviously it is stunning. But there's a couple of like interesting features because of the shape of like the layouts that were kind of, I don't know, just kind of intriguing. So the first one, which was just seemed really strange when we first got there, and that is, obviously you can see where I'm putting the things down now. That is where the altar is, in front of that beautiful fireplace. And that door to the left is where the toilets are. Now, obviously when I first got there, I was like, this is kind of strange. Like, what happens if we're in the middle of the ceremony and someone needs a toilet? Or what happens if, like, someone's in the toilet and then they start the ceremony and they don't realise, and then they just, like, walk out of that door halfway through the ceremony? I don't know, like, there's just scenarios going through my mind. But then, to be honest, the ceremonies are so short, or they're not that long, really, are they? So, actually, there wasn't really a problem, and it kind of made sense by the end of the night because they turned this space into like where obviously like dance floor is, the band is, all that kind of stuff, and then obviously the toilets are out of from that main room, so that makes sense. But I think it was just kind of like a strange thing. But there was also toilets you could access from the outside, so I guess you could use those. But yeah, and then obviously the other thing is I thought was quite interesting is having this. Obviously, you've got the aisle and where all the seats are, but you have this break in seats. So there's a big space where there are no seats, which means that actually, all the seats at the kind of second half, if you get what I mean, they're really pretty far away, but it's like aesthetically pleasing, but it means you could be really far away from where obviously the wedding's happening. Do you know what I mean? And then, yeah, I guess, I don't know, like, if this is, I don't really know what the norm is here, but then it was just, obviously, the bride and, like, the bridesmaid and everything, they came, obviously, they come down the aisle, but they just had to come through this very small door right at the back. I don't know if you can see. I thought originally they were going to come through the main door and only walk down half the aisle, which I also thought might have been a little bit strange, but they came from, there's just, like, a very small door at the back, so it was very kind of, like, I don't know, I was a bit nervous for them, like, like, I don't know, if the bride had like a big dress or something, then it might be, like a bit of a squeeze or whatever, but it was all fine. But yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it? Like using the space of what they've got, but it really worked. It did really work. I guess it's just when you first see it, you're like, oh, like thinking of like things in your mind. And then I guess like the thing that I loved was the flowers. Like I really just wanted to recreate the flowers on the fireplace, and then the flowers that are around the big chandelier, like hanging over where everyone's sitting and things. I used the same flowers. They're kind of like the drapey flowers that we get with the wedding pack. That's supposed to be, I suppose, just kind of like a nice decorative thing. Yeah, I kind of like size them up and size them down to create this what looks like a big garland on the fireplace, and then a big kind of like wraparound garland around the chandelier, which I think looks really, really cool. And this is actually the first build. I'm actually really unsure what I'm going to pick as the thumbnail for this build. You guys will know because you'll have seen it, but I've basically always done, I think, my thumbnails are always the exterior of the building, never the inside, because I always think that the outsides have been more interesting than the insides. Now, this one, I'm not sure, but I may do the inside of the actual like wedding ceremony area, just because, like I said, like I do think that's just like, it's just so stunning. But I don't know. I'm going to play around with it, see what's the best picture, because I just, like, I think the outside of this building is not, like, it's unclear what's kind of going on. Like, like it's not, because like I said at the start, like when you think of like a barn wedding venue, I don't know, I just feel like a picture pops into my mind of this like really stereotypical barn, like farm barn that's just been converted. And obviously this is just not that. This is much bigger. It's got this big like modern add-on, which is really cool space for all the seating. Like I loved using long tables. I think that's such a fun idea rather than having round tables. It's just much more, I just feel like you feel closer to everyone, even though obviously there's still people that are really far apart, but it just feels like you're all connected rather than just kind of like in your own like little bubbles. So yeah, so it's not just kind of like from the outside, it's kind of hard to work out what's going on. It's hard to capture like the essence of it, right? So that's why, I don't know what I'm going to pick as a thumbnail, maybe the inside, I don't know. And then obviously putting these like lights draping in the eating area. The problem with, obviously, it's a huge venue, but there's no space for like a DJ band dance area. So that's why I put the dance floor just in the middle of the aisle, which I was really reluctant to do because I kind of feel like it takes away a little bit from the vibe, the aesthetic of it. But I wanted somewhere where the Sims could dance. Obviously, they can dance anywhere, but that's the space that there would be. I find a lot of weddings, you have the place where you eat or the ceremony, and often it can be then turned into where there's like the music and stuff and when people are dancing. But I mean, obviously you can do that in The Sims, you could do that in your game. Like once the ceremony's ended, you could then turn it into the space where there's the dancing. But yeah, I can't like fit everything in now, if you get what I mean, because I'd have to take all the chairs out. So that's why I put the dance floor there. It's got all the elements you need, so you don't need to change anything, but obviously if you want to, you can. Because obviously there's the piano and there's like the speakers. So yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I was reluctant to do that, but I just feel like I needed that dance floor in there. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got off to the right that we just finished was the kind of kitchen. And the thing I didn't add on, they also had this really cool pizza kitchen, which kind of was a modern add-on, big like glass box to the front, which I haven't added on just because I felt like, again, it wasn't really needed. Like it was just basically so you could see some people make pizza, and I didn't really feel like in The Sims that was kind of worth it, and kind of took away from the front of the building a little bit. In The Sims anyway, obviously it looked really cool in real life, but in The Sims it just looked a bit weird. So yeah, I opted not to do that. So it's just got like the kitchen where they can get the food, obviously the toilets. And like I say, these are the toilets that are off where the ceremony is, but it's kind of cool. And then that's kind of next to the sofa room, I'm going to call it, which was the space where like, I mean, I don't know, obviously, ceremonies around the world are all different, but in this case, the kind of civil ceremony that they do here, that was kind of the space they used for when like the groom and the like best man and stuff have to talk to the registrar, just about the kind of like the rings and stuff like this. Is that space that's used for kind of the kind of making sure everyone knows what's going on, like prep space. But then obviously later it was just kind of open, you could go in and like hang out in there. So it's kind of like not really needed in The Sims, but I kind of like it's kind of nice to have that kind of space. And then there's one other room, which is the room that I never saw, and that's the room where the bride and like bridesmaids and father of the bride came out of. And I kind of made it like a little office space, meeting room. And I feel like it's where, like if you look around the venue, or like where the kind of events manager works, like this is their space. This is where they'd like talk to the couple when they come to view it, like talking about like, I don't know, like their food choices, all this kind of stuff. That's what that space is. But then it's also obviously where like you can like sneak the bride in unseen around the back, and then she can walk down the aisle. And the outside is just very, very simple because, I mean, it didn't have anything crazy. Like it was, like I said, it was a very sophisticated wedding. Like it didn't have any kind of outside fun. That's just not like there's no like area that was, I don't know, like a kids play area, or like like an outside play area where kids could go, or it was just so sophisticated. There was just seating and some kind of like fires, so obviously in the evening you could sit by the fires to warm your hands and things. So yeah, like it's very simple vibes, nothing too like specific. Do you know what I mean? Like specific to a theme, or specific to, I don't know, so the couple can do what they want with it, basically. But anyway, we've come to the end, so I will leave you with some screenshots and see you in the next one. Bye!